Hey guys, I'm Sage Valentine, and I'm back to review another episode of CBS's Big Brother, Season 18, episode number 38, so let's just get down to it. I'm not surprised Corey won HOH because I had a feeling that he was going to win. I also had a feeling that Corey and Nicole were going to decide to turn on Victor and Paul this week, and like James said, he is in a very good position for the week. I don't believe he's in a good position for the game, though, because that dude is going to have to win HOH at the end in order to secure himself in the top two, because Corey and Nicole are pretty much unstoppable at this point. And the only two people who could really take them down is Victor and Paul. And you're probably saying, well, what about James? The problem is that James has thrown so many competitions and he seems to do what he is told. And I'm just like, dude, you're going to have to win a competition sometime. Because from the looks of it, Corey and Nicole look at James as somebody they can just take to the final three, and then they can kind of, push him aside and evict him, and then it'll be down to the two of them. And between the two of them, I can see Nicole winning the game. Unless, of course, the jury members decide that they really hate Nicole and then they crown Corey. That would be crazy. Very crazy if Corey was crowned the winner of Big Brother 18. It would be yet another dude, and it would be a guy that no one thought would get this far in the game, to be completely honest. If I was in that HOH competition, I think that I would be like James crawling on his hands and knees, or Paul sliding on his butt all the way to the two fish bowls. Either way, I thought that they were pretty smart to do those moves after falling for countless times. And as far as Nicole is concerned, I'm not surprised that she started falling and falling and falling, because she fell when she competed in that competition in season 16 as well. James, Nicole, and Corey are cool with one another. I am not surprised that James was not nominated this week. Plus, James, Nicole, and Corey are all loyal to one another. And I do believe that the idea to take out either Paul or Victor this week was a very, very good one, because Paul and Victor feel safe and secure in the game at this point, which in my opinion is a very bad idea. Which also explains why Nicole is always paranoid and Corey is always like thinking all the time, because whenever players feel safe in Big Brother, that's usually the time when they are in big trouble, because plans are being hatched behind their backs. So, who did I think would win HOH this week? Corey, of course, because Corey seemed like the most confident in the game. He didn't really waver. There was no hesitation. He just delivered the butter and kept on going. And there was a moment when he almost fell, but he kept his balance. And it was just his movements that convinced me that he would win, because he just kept gliding forward and backward and backward and forward. Now, as far as my mom is concerned, she made a good point when she said that Nicole hooked a good one. Meaning that Nicole teamed up with the right person, because Corey has her back. Corey is there for her, and Corey is listening to her ideas. And unlike the situation with James and Natalie, Nicole doesn't have to worry as to whether or not Corey is going to go behind her back and go against her wishes, or essentially stab her in the back by nominating her. Well, at this point, she doesn't have to worry about that. So, Paul gave up in the HOH competition after a while, and I was just like, dude, like, you might be in a Final Four deal with Nicole and Corey, but I remember Victor and Paul talking about how they couldn't trust them, and then to see him just like playing around towards the end, I was shaking my head like, dude, you are in a lot of trouble. And After Corey won HOH, James said that that idea was not a bad scenario for his game. No, of course not, because he's safe for the week. Now, as far as Victor and Paul are concerned, it's a nightmare, but they don't see it as a nightmare because they see it as another plus for their Final Four alliance with Corey and Nicole. Okay, so Victor is not 100% happy that Corey won because he knows that he and Paul will end up being pawns on the block next to James. This is what they believe. Obviously, because Corey would nominate Nicole. Not unless he had to. So, I mean, really had to. So Paul feels safe and confident, and that's pretty evident after he was playing around towards the end of the HOH competition. And that's a really bad idea. And Nicole says it's time for us to make a big move. So I'm just sitting back like, oh, I can't wait to see what this big move is going to entail. How are they going to nominate Victor and Paul? Victor's so happy because finally he has an alliance that wins and sticks to their guns. And I'm just like, wait until you are nominated this week. You will feel different about this alliance. James feels down after losing Natalie. He feels like he lost his best friend. Natalie and James patched things up before the live show. Natalie just felt like she wanted to sleep. She didn't want to fight anymore. And she said it's been difficult to stay positive in the house. And she said that she wouldn't throw him under the bus. And then Big Brother showed that scene where Natalie was talking to Paul and Victor again. I believe it was in the opening montage, you know, from the last episode. And it did appear like she had thrown him under the bus. Whether she realized it or not, although I do think that it was intentional because she was on the block next to James and she obviously wanted to save herself, but I digress. So James fell for her, gave this impression like he wanted to tell her I love you, and she left him her flip-flops. Corey did a practical joke on Nicole by putting salt in her water, which was gross. We were able to see an HOH segment where Corey showed his dog, the dog that he's been talking about all season, and she's a cutie pie. Apparently, he's a big fan of Taylor Swift, and his sister calls him, and I hope I heard what she said or what he said correctly, Co-Man, I think that's the name, or Core Man or something like that. So Corey and Nicole decide that they are better off working with James and having James in the game with them and being in the Final Four with James and Paul, obviously, because they want Victor out. And their idea is to put Victor out first and then take out Paul. But they have to make sure James doesn't use the veto to help Paul and Victor or go after Nicole and Corey. If he did, that, in my opinion, would be an interesting move, but unfortunately I don't see James doing that at all because he's very loyal to Nicole and Corey. I disagree with the statement that James has a better chance in the game to work with Nicole and Corey over Paul and Victor, because regardless of which group he works with, they're essentially going to have to turn on him unless, of course, he wins HOH or wins a veto. But it seems like James is easily manipulated into throwing a competition. And if he wants to make it to the final three, hopefully he ignores that manipulation and really starts playing this game, because if not, he has no chance of winning. Victor never gives up. Apparently, he's trying to holler at Nicole, making her laugh and such, but Nicole is into Corey, and I'm just like, dude, she's not into you. She's just not that into you. James comes upstairs, and Nicole and Corey are overjoyed because they didn't want to call him to come to the HOH room because it would look suspicious, and they're still trying to fool Paul and Victor. So Nicole and Corey tell him that they want Victor out and they cannot let him win the veto, or essentially get to the end to win the game pretty much. So Corey says, let's win the veto and keep the nominations the same. James says he trusts them 100%. Paul thinks that Nicole and Corey might screw him and Victor over because James might get in their head, as if Nicole and Corey are not smart enough to piece together that idea by themselves. Like, he really underestimated them in that sense. James might be a sneaky little guy, but he is not the mastermind behind that plan to nominate Paul and Victor. That's Nicole and Corey. So Paul goes off to the HOH room to do damage control. He asks them what's the plan, and he mentions James being nominated with a pawn, and Corey's just like, yeah. And Paul volunteers. He says that he'll be the pawn because Victor doesn't want to be the pawn. He won't like it. And he says that we, the final four, need to win veto to make sure that James didn't win veto. And he said that this should be a smooth week if all goes well. Nicole feels bad about this whole idea to backstab Victor and Paul, but Victor and Paul wouldn't hesitate to backstab them. On a side note, Nicole says that Victor will be hurt, but Paul will be obnoxious. And both Corey and Nicole reveal that they don't want to be in a Final Four with Paul and Victor because they don't want to be with another duo. They would rather be in a Final Four with, say, James and with Paul, if all goes according to plan and they get Victor out of the house. So worst case scenario, James will go home if he's nominated, and Corey's not happy about that. But then Nicole and Corey think about the idea of James working with Paul and Victor. But I say that it's not likely after Paul and Victor were the reasons why Natalie went home. But Nicole did make some good points about why James would work with those two. So that segment with Corey pondering while looking at the wall was a crazy segment, and I feel like Big Brother gave him the insomniac, pondering, cleaning while I'm stressed edit, and those little voiceover clips that kept playing as each picture was shown was too funny. So we get down to the nomination ceremony. Paul feels good. He feels confident in the Final Four. Nicole feels guilty, but she says in this game you have to separate strategy from emotions. James feels good. He feels close to 100%, even though he knows that in Big Brother you really shouldn't feel that way. Victor feels confident that he or Paul will be a pawn. Corey says he has to make a big move. He has to do what's best for his game. He's playing Big Brother, not Big Baby. So Corey nominates Victor and Paul. He said that it's not in his best interest to put James up for now. Corey says you got to take the shot. Mama didn't raise no B word. Got to make a big move. Paul is pissed. He said Victor and I have been used and abused. Paul said he's gunning for the veto and he's seeking revenge. Corey said Victor and Paul are huge threats. Victor wins competitions. He's a competition beast. Vic will be evicted for the third and final time. Nicole says she thought that she could win in the beginning, but she's one step closer to the Final Four, and she's just freaking out because she's so happy about that. James said that the tables have turned, and he is now in the middle of two groups, and he's not on either group's radar, so he's in a good position right now. As for next week, God only knows. Victor is angry, and he said that trust is his downfall, and I'm just like, listen, Jose said don't trust Nicole. Davon said don't trust Nicole. Quite a few other people have said don't trust Nicole, and yet he did it anyway. He fell for it hook, line, and sinker. hopefully he wins the veto. This is what Victor says, and takes shots at Nicole and Corey. You guys will see the veto competition, but honestly, it's anybody's game at this point. Let me know who you want to win Big Brother, who you think will win the veto. Is James as safe as he says he is? And who do you want to see in the final three? I'm Sage Valentine. I will be back to review the next episode of Big Brother. I love you all, and this time it'll be on time. Bye, guys. Bye.